Hi everyone, I'm Tom, your local government consultant here at Plan Resources. Today I want to take you through the differences and benefits between a fixed term contract and a temporary role. Mostly my clients in local government come to me to provide them a temporary worker, maybe to fill a spot in their team or to assist with some extra workload. A temporary worker is paid by us, by Plan Resources, meaning that they do a timesheet weekly from which we pay them and then we invoice you. All statutory compliance and requirements such as superannuation and taxes are paid by the recruitment agency. In Victoria, it's important to choose an agency who are registered with the Labour Hire Authority, who ensure that the agency is treating their staff fairly with respect to pay and safe working conditions. Using an unregistered supplier opens up both the client and the Labour Hire Agency to fines. You can check that your potential suppliers are registered via www.labourhireauthority.vic.gov.au. In comparison, another option is to take a candidate on a fixed term contract. On a fixed term contract, the candidate becomes an employee of your organisation and is paid by you, though we take care of initial compliance documents for you. We only charge a once-off fee at the start of their placement. In this way, it is very similar to recruiting a role permanently. I'll talk you through the features of both options. A temporary role can be advantageous to both client and candidate because under a temporary role, the worker can choose to leave any time and the client can choose to finish their contract at any time as well. This gives both the client and candidate a lot of flexibility in case the situation changes, such as budget is something not available, the candidate moves into state or similar. Typically, pay rates to candidates in temporary roles are higher and are aligned to casual rates of pay. There are no upfront fees from the agency for a temporary role as we make our margin in smaller amounts throughout the contract. Bear in mind if you're comparing the hourly rates for temporary and direct fixed term appointments, the temp rate also incorporates the hidden employment costs such as payroll tax and workers' compensation, as well as being engaged at an inflated casual rate to compensate for a lack of holiday pay and sick pay, which an employer would actually pay if you're engaging someone for a fixed term contract, but might not appear in your initial comparison. A fixed term contract is advantageous to both client and candidate because it provides certainty to the candidate around the time frame of the role, potentially opening up people in permanent positions who are prepared for some balanced risks, but with a sense of security in their role going forward. The recruiter sources the candidate and supplies them to the employer via a release fee. This fee can be either a one-off fee or potentially split into stages. For example, if the candidate is engaged on a 6-month contract with a potential extension, the employer may negotiate with the agency to charge a proportion of the fee up front with a final component due if the candidate extends beyond their initial contract. On a fixed term contract, it is the responsibility of the employer, not the agency, to manage payroll and working conditions. Very often these candidates are engaged in a salaried arrangement with leave and other entitlements rather than on a casual hourly rate. This does not have to be the case though, and removing the recruitment agency from the equation can open up the opportunity for the employer to engage candidates directly as sole traders or other arrangements, which may be the preference of the candidate. Agencies can vary in how they calculate the fee, although typically it's based on some sort of pro rata calculation of what they would have charged for a full-time permanent placement. Typically, agencies will only look at fixed term fees for roles 6 months and over, as it gets more difficult to administer for contracts shorter than this. This is because you pay a once-off cost, which you call the release fee or finder's fee, to the agency rather than the recurring cost you see in a temporary role. When assessing which option is best for you, we suggest that you consider the following. Firstly, does the preferred candidate have a strong preference? Candidates may have a preference for a temp-based role because of the higher hourly rates and the flexibility that comes with a contract, or direct engagement with the employer due to their requirement for either a certain contractual agreement or their need for greater security. In a candidate short market, this may be the difference between you or another employer engaging that candidate. Secondly, the length of the contract. Typically for contracts less than 6 months, it is cheaper to engage the candidates on the hourly rate, so temporary, rather than pay the upfront costs. For contracts over 9 months, it is usually cheaper to pay a release fee. For contracts in between, it's worth reviewing to see your options, and we're happy to talk you through that depending on the situation. So when you are looking for a candidate to fill a gap in your team, please do feel welcome to reach out to myself about the costing. A fixed term option may suit your budget better and provide a candidate who otherwise might not have been looking for a shorter role. And it also gives them more security. We are also a Procurement Australia approved supplier, which means that for fixed term contracts as well as temporary, these costs are fixed and giving you certainty and peace of mind. If you have any questions, please feel welcome to contact me on the details below.